Hi everyone, my name is Eve and welcome to my first video of Crafty Crimes. If you don't know me yet, my channel is called The Stitch Bitch. That's because I love crafting and I love crochet, but I've always been a fan of true crime, so I thought why not put my two biggest interests together, and that's what I'm doing starting today. Since I'm new on YouTube, I thought why not start with a few facts about me. I started doing crochet in 2023, but I only really got into it when I started making my first plushie in December of 2023. So I'm quite new and you're welcome to start learning with me. If you're thinking, oh, your accent is a bit weird, you were very right. I live in the Netherlands, so English is not my first language, and that's of course why. I have a living walking cloud in my home. He's named Teddy. You might have seen him before on my Instagram because he always has to do my quality checks on my crochet products, and he's very thorough. He's here right now. Teddy, come on over. Here he is. He's a bit of a monster, but quite cute and has no idea what personal space is. If you would like to know more about me, you can always leave your questions in the comments and I'll see if I can answer them. Or you can go look at my social links. I'll leave them in the description where I share a bit more about my life and things I like to do or crochet. With that being said, it's time to get on with Crafty Crimes. In this video series, we're going to be combining true crime and crafting. So it's time to get criminally crafty. So what we are going to do today is we're going to crochet a Chonky Mushroom Boi. And this is a free pattern by the amazing Chonky Crochet on Instagram. I love the pattern and it's very easy to make and also looks really cute. And I thought since this is my first video, let's not make it too hard on myself and let's go with something I know I love. Today I'll be using Lindehobby's Velvet Luxe yarn. I'll be using Lilac for the mushroom cap and white for the body. So like I said, this is a free pattern by Chonky Crochet. I will not be showing you the pattern during the video because I did not make it myself and I don't want to, you know, copyright infringe it, but I will leave the free pattern link down below in the description so you can go make it yourself if you like. Okay, so we are starting with Lilac for the mushroom cap, then we'll work our way down to the white body. Now, onto today's case for Crafty Crimes. I wanted to start with a story that I know is both harrowing, but also very inspiring at the same time. The woman in today's case suffered tremendous mental and physical trauma due to her attack, but she did not let that get her down and fought for justice by testifying against her attacker in court multiple times. Later on, she even became a victim's advocate and did motivational speaking. So today we are talking about the amazing survival story of Mary Vincent. So my sources for today are a Ranker article by Laura Allen, a criminal article by Rare Stories, and a Blurred Bylines article by Sherry Rose. Mary Vincent was born in 1963 and grew up in Las Vegas with her parents and her 6 other siblings. Mary grew up wanting to be a dancer and she even dreamed of dancing in Las Vegas and other parts of the world. Mary's parents were going through a messy divorce and that meant that Mary was becoming a bit more defiant as a teenager. I mean, weren't we all? This means that she started to skip school more often and even left Las Vegas with her boyfriend at one point when she was 15. They decided to go to California and live there, and they spent a little while living out of his car before he was apprehended and charged with assault of a minor. This of course left Mary all alone and she decided to go live with her uncle for a little while in California before travelling further down south to go visit her granddad. Mary stayed with her grandfather for a little while, but after a while she started to become homesick and she decided to go back to Las Vegas. Mary decided to hitchhike back home, which was not uncommon in the 70s. It was actually quite a public and known way to transport yourself if you were a teenager and you did not have your own car or your own license or could not go by public transport. It was on September 29th, 1978 that the 15-year-old Mary was standing on the side of the road with 2 other hitchhikers looking for a ride back home. That's when a van pulled up and in it was 50-year-old Lawrence Singleton. He told the hitchhikers that he only had space for one of the hitchhikers in his car, but when the other 2 hitchhikers looked at his car and it was a van, they saw that that van in the back was empty, that he actually did have enough room for more, so they grew suspicious and decided not to get into his van. They even advised Mary against going with him because they had a weird gut feeling, but Mary was so exhausted and really wanted to go home, so she went against her gut feeling and got into the van with Lawrence Singleton. Singleton had made a friendly appearance to Mary, which is why she decided to go with him, and he had told her that he would at least bring her to Los Angeles. What Mary could not have known is that Singleton had already been convicted of contributing to the delinquency of a minor. It means you are either helping or making a minor do something illegal, or not taking the necessary steps to prevent them from doing something illegal that you were aware of. That being said, Singleton also had a history of alcohol abuse, and he had recently divorced from his second wife and also become estranged from his daughter. Now, we don't want to judge too quickly, but it kind of doesn't sound too good, especially with the fact that he only wanted to take one hitchhiker with him when he had enough room in his van. When they first start driving, Singleton lights a cigarette, which makes Mary sneeze, and he reaches out to touch the back of her neck and asking if she's ill. Mary does not like this and she jerks back to avoid physical contact, and Singleton does apologise and they leave it at that. When he did not try anything further, Mary actually felt comfortable enough to fall asleep in the car. She started to drift off because she was exhausted from her travels back home. However, when Mary woke up, she realised that they were driving the wrong way and that he had turned back to Nevada instead of going to Los Angeles. Mary then found a sharp stick and made Singleton turn back around in the right way where she was headed. Singleton apologised and said that he was just an honest man who made an honest mistake. Mary believed them and they continued on their journey. After a while, Singleton stops the van for a bathroom break. Mary also gets out of the car to stretch her legs for a little bit. However, when she bends down to retie her shoelaces, Singleton strikes her on the back of the head with a hammer. After he struck her with the hammer until she fell down, he bound her hands and put her in the back of the van. He drove off to a secluded space and actually proceeded to sexually assault her throughout the whole of the night. Singleton told Mary that she were to obey him if she wanted to live, which is of course what she did. Later on, Singleton freed Mary's hands from her binds and made her drink an unknown alcoholic drink from a plastic jug, essentially drugging her, and she passes out while he continues to assault her. When Mary regains consciousness in the morning, Singleton had drove a little further off and he pulled the van to his side and pulled her out of the van next to the road. Mary pleads with Singleton to be set free, to which he horrifically replies, "If you want to be free, I'll set you free," before taking a hatchet and chopping both of Mary's underarms off just below the elbow. Believing Mary was going to die soon anyways, and that taking her hands would make it difficult to identify her through fingerprints, Singleton decides to throw Mary off of a 30-foot cliff onto a concrete culvert. There, next to the Interstate 5, Mary was left for dead, naked, scared, and close to death because of the blood loss. Miraculously, Mary was still alive and she was determined to survive, even when she felt the urge to go to sleep and give in to death. Instead of giving in, she was smart enough to pack her wounds with the mud on the floor to essentially stop the bleeding, and then she had to make the long, arduous journey back up the cliff, 30 feet deep, and walk the 3 miles back to the Interstate 5. Mary later tells in interviews that during the walk she just focused on the sound of the interstate to help her and find the interstate, meanwhile holding her arms up to minimize the bleeding. The first car that drove past Mary had 2 men in it, and when they saw her, they quickly sped away. Mary later tells in interviews that she kind of understands why they did, because of the way that she looked. She was naked, bloodied, and was missing parts of both of her arms. Luckily, later on, a second car comes by with a couple in it who were on holiday, and they stopped to save Mary and take her immediately to the hospital to get the care that she needed. Also, the mushroom cap is finished, so now I'm going to attach the white and we are going to start on the body. Once at the hospital, Mary did everything she could to help the police identify her attacker, as well as give really good details for the composite sketch, after which Mary had to go into intense surgery to save her life and what was left of both of her arms. Mary was eventually fitted with prosthetics on both of her arms and had to get years of physical therapy as well as mental therapy to deal with all the trauma. Mary's detailed description of her attacker really resulted in people immediately recognizing the sketch and saying that it was Singleton that the people were looking for, and so the police apprehended him on the 8th of October 1978, which was luckily only 10 days after the attack. When Singleton initially spoke to the police, he denied any wrongdoing and said that he did not commit any crimes, and that Mary was actually a sex worker at 15 years old, and that there must have been another person in the van, and he must have been the person to have done this to Mary. The trial took place 6 months after the attack on Mary, and despite everything Mary had been through, she was brave enough to even testify in court against her attacker. Mary spoke about the whole ordeal and everything that Singleton had done to her during the hours that she was held captive by him. Luckily, in March 1979, Singleton was found guilty of attempted murder, rape, sodomy, mayhem, kidnapping, and forced oral copulation. However, when Mary had to walk back during the trial from the stand and pass Singleton, he had the audacity to whisper to her, "I'll finish the job, even if it will take me the rest of my life." This of course terrified Mary, making her feel even more mental anguish, feeling depressed, isolated and terrified. Singleton was unfortunately only sentenced to 14 years in prison. This was due to the fact that this was the maximum sentence possible for these charges, which to me is actually insane. And of course, Singleton was released after only serving 8 years in prison on good behaviour. Singleton being let out of prison on parole made Mary scared of her life because she was afraid of him trying to make his promise to end her life come true. And unfortunately, he did make his promise come true when he murdered someone else and he took the life of Roxanne Hayes. When Singleton left prison, towns all throughout California refused to let him live within their communities, which I totally get. He's a monster. They were eventually forced to put a trailer on the grounds of San Quentin prison for him to live out the rest of his parole before he was allowed to move somewhere else. Afterwards, Singleton even decided to sue Mary, claiming that he was the victim in all of this and that she tried to rob him and was actually accusing him of rape whilst holding him hostage with the sharp stick in the car. Thank God that the courts did not believe him and the case was dismissed. Nearly 20 years after the attack on Mary, on February 19, 1997, Singleton lured 31-year-old sex worker and mother of 3 children, Roxanne Hayes, to his home in Florida. There in his home, he attacked her and violently stabbed her to death. The neighbors had heard Roxanne's screams and decided to call the police, but unfortunately it was too late, for when the police arrived, Roxanne had already succumbed to her wounds. Officers found Roxanne's body on the floor, covered in blood and riddled with stab wounds. They also found Singleton at the house with a bloody shirt on, and they immediately arrested him. When Singleton's trial started, Mary had once again decided to testify against him in court and told the jury what had happened 20 years before when he attacked her. Even after everything she's gone through, she is strong enough to testify once again against her attacker, and this time on the behalf of Roxanne Hayes, who could unfortunately no longer do so herself. Singleton was sentenced to death on April 14, 1998 for the murder of Roxanne Hayes, but he only spent about 3 years on death row before succumbing to cancer and dying on the 28th of December 2001, dying at the age of 74. In 1998, Mary went to Washington, D.C. to testify in favour of a bill called the Singleton Bill. This bill was created to prevent early release of convicts who commit torture-related crimes like the one Singleton has, but unfortunately the bill never passed through. Before we move on to the last part of the story, it's time to put in the eyes. I'm using 10mm safety eyes, and then we're going to stuff and close up the body. Here I'm going to put on the safety caps, and I have to always use some force if I don't want them to drop out. Looks so weird when it's not stuffed. Mary later on in life became the mother of 2 boys and eventually started to heal after years of depression and stress that the attack had caused her. Mary also became an artist and is a victim's advocate and also does motivational speeches. To me, it's very inspiring to see how Mary, after all the trauma that she endured, was able to fight against singleton in court and even is now speaking on victims' rights. Well, this concludes my case and also my crafting. This is the end product. This is the Chonky Mushroom Boi. I added some white spots on the top and as well as some blush underneath the eyes because I think it makes it look extra cute. I hope you enjoyed crocheting with me whilst talking about this pretty horrific case. I know I did. And if you have any suggestions for future cases, be sure to let me know in the comments. I will definitely look at them. And thank you so much for watching and listening, and be sure to subscribe if you want to watch more crafty crime videos in the future. If you want, you can always follow me on other social media platforms to see more of the things that I like to make or do, and I will see you guys next time. So have a good day and happy crafting. Bye bye. Just wait till you see what I have to look at when I do my videos. Oi. What are you looking at? You're making it way more weird, but also cute at the same time. What am I going to do with you? Ugh. Making this so difficult.